Hello my loves, if you're new here, my name is Lily. I am an anxious girl who just loves to read, and if you're not new here, then welcome back. You know what time it is? It's time for a monthly wrap up and also for the next month's hopefuls. We, a couple of days ago actually, concluded April, so let's talk about all the books we read. We started this month out very well with The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. I was so excited for this book. I actually didn't know about it coming out until like a month before it was released because I was so out of the loop. So glad that someone on Book Talk made me aware that this book was coming out because oh my god, Jessa Hastings just knocked another one out of the park. This was a 4.5 star read for me, and the only reason that it wasn't a 5-star was that the romance moved a little bit too fast for my personal taste. However, I docked half a point instead of like a whole star or more than that, like I usually would when the romance is moving fast, because I'm not a big fan of that. The way the characters were written and the way that the romance happened and the way that they interacted with each other was done in such a natural way, and it wasn't forced. The banter, the conversations, the depth, it all just happened naturally. It's only that it happened a little bit faster than I would have preferred, because I would have liked to sit with it a little bit longer. Wanted it to slow down a bit just to savor it a bit more. Could also be that I was consuming this at an alarming rate, so I do have to take some responsibility for that. And just the cover, just whoever did this cover art is incredible, but highly recommend. The book is another stunning cover. It also happened to have sprayed edges that I had no idea about when I ordered it, but that is, as you can see, are Infinite Fates. This is another sign that I am very easily influenced by Book Talk, because it was recommended on Book Talk and I immediately ordered it because it just sounded so amazing, and it was really good. It was a solid 3-star fantasy, or like, I don't know, urban fantasy, because it's kind of set in our world. For me personally, it just jumped a bit too much in between the different timelines. I just felt like, because when the story began, the main characters were already like, they already had an emotional bond and depth that we didn't get to experience how it was created and how it all started. And I just felt like that made the romance lack substance, and the romance is very much like interweaved with the plot in this book, so I just felt like that made everything kind of lack depth, and the stakes weren't as high as I would have like wanted to feel that they were. Do I recommend this? If you like fast-paced fantasies with a lot of romance, heavy on the romance, absolutely. Every time I start to talk about these books I've read, all the words just bloop, 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 float away. Next we have Abby Jimenez's latest release, Say You'll Remember Me. I was so excited for this. I am obsessed with Abby Jimenez? I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I've loved all the books of hers that I've read, but this was, I say but like something bad is going to come. It's not. This was a solid 4-star. Again, the same with a little bit of the other ones, that I felt like, since this was a romance separated by distance, it's very, you know, realistic. Abby always writes romances where it's actual adult problems that interfere with the romance. It's not like two teenagers having a miscommunication and creating a bunch of drama. It always feels very like down to earth and very adult, which I love, and not adult in like the dirty way, adult in the fact that it's like they're dealing with real life issues. And when you're getting into a relationship and you have distance that separates you, but you can't, like, you neither have the time or the money to fly back and forth all the time, and these things that are things that couples deal with in our real life world. Not that I would know, because I've never been in a relationship. But I just felt like because of that distance, the characters didn't spend as much time with each other to fall in love on the timeline that they did, if that makes sense. I feel like I would have wanted more time with the main characters actually together, spending time with each other and falling in love, and not like distance makes the heart grow fonder kind of thing. So that's why it's only a 4-star. And I say only because Abby Jimenez's books are often ranked a lot higher for me. They're often 5 stars, or at the very least 4.5. I think I've only ranked one of her other or rated one of her other books a 4-star before, so this is only like my second 4-star of hers. But 4-star is definitely a good rating. It's not about that, it's definitely a good romance. I just felt like it would have given more, again, more substance to the romance if they had had more time with each other. Personally, for me, this is all my personal preferences. I don't know, like I can't English today. The next book we have, I read on my Kindle, and that is Things We Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. I've read The Bodyguard, I believe it's called, by hers, and I really enjoyed it, and then I read the rom-coms and I really enjoyed that, so I thought this sounded really good. There was a couple of things that I took a little bit of issue with, like the way that, you know, the main character was told, the main character is a firefighter, and she has to, for reasons that kicked the book off very well, and it was a really intriguing, interesting start to the book. But so she has to be moved for reasons that I won't name because that feels too much like spoiler, and she has to start over at a new fire station in a smaller town. And before she leaves, her boss, who's also a woman, is like, don't act like a girl, you can't do anything girly, don't wear makeup, don't wear pink, like a bunch of these rules that's like, if you do these stereotypically girly things, you won't be taken seriously. And I don't know how the dynamics are for women. I know that it's a male dominated space in firefighters, and I do believe that they meet a lot of prejudice. Like, I would be surprised if it was the other way around in general for firefighters, but just the fact that like it was portrayed in this way, that like, don't do these things just to try to fit in. I would have wanted to see it be like a bit more, I don't know, that it wasn't portrayed in that way, that she could have done those things and still clap back at anyone who was sexist and like prove them wrong, and everything was okay, instead of it being like, act as much as a man as you can, because otherwise, you know, I don't like the way that that was portrayed. And the main character had moments, she had her reasons why she didn't believe in love, and I don't have an issue, as someone who myself have doubted my belief in love on multiple occasions, I don't have an issue with that at all. But the fact that the main character, because she didn't believe in love, were like, girls who fall in love are stupid, they give up all of their like own agency over themselves. And yes, that happens, that is an actual issue. Internalized misogyny is a massive issue, but the way that it was portrayed and the way that it was written made it seem, instead of like criticizing the patriarchal structure and how it affects women in relationships without them even realizing it themselves, it was more just laid out as girls who fall in love are stupid, period. Wasn't as nuanced as I would have liked it to be. But in spite of those things, this book was still a 4-star. I was emotionally invested. I do felt like there was action. I liked the found family that was created. It did balance those issues that I had out a bit, because the main character was targeted by someone, we don't know who, I'm not gonna say who because that's a spoiler, because she is a woman at the fire station, and that brought her up a bunch of these issues that like she has faced as a woman in this industry, and clapping back at that and painting that in a way that like, this is in no way okay. So I feel like that was just a little miss, or a miss with the other things. Next up we have this beautiful book that my dad sent to me, and that is The Wren in the Holly Library. And let's just take a moment. So pretty, it's so beautiful. And I had actually never heard of this book before my dad sent it to me, so I went into this relatively blind. I believe that my dad told me that it was like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I have read a bunch of Beauty and the Beast retellings before, so I did go in expecting something similar to those, but this was really surprising because it is set in our modern world, but there are monsters in this modern world. They came from somewhere, I can't remember where now because it's been a couple of weeks since I read this. Monsters live in our world. Humans have had to adapt to this new hierarchy because they are no longer at the top of the food chain, and we have a thief who is stealing to stay alive. That might be a bit much. She's a thief for a living, and she sneaks into this place to steal something, and she is caught, and then she is pulled into this political intrigue among monsters, and with this monster of a man who she doesn't know anything about, who's really dangerous and who wants her to help him steal something. It was a fun combination of magic, mayhem and romance. It had an interesting world building, it had an interesting magic system. It's the familiar trope where she has magic that she doesn't know about and he has to train her, and I'm a sucker for that one. I just felt like at times it was a little bit slow, and it was a little bit like squeezed together at the end, which made it a little bit rushed, and that is why this is a solid 3-star. A solid 3-star fantasy. I had a good time, and if you like Beauty and the Beast retellings, I would definitely recommend this because I haven't read a retelling like this before that is set in our modern world. We have another Kindle read, which was the cowboy romance Cash, which I was a little bit disappointed in. I went into this with relatively high expectations because I had heard so much hype about it on my BookTok feed, and I just felt like it was a little bit everywhere all at once. The romance started out really good, but then it escalated really fast, and then the whole like plot point that kicked the book off felt like it was kind of forgotten and discarded along the way, and the like last 50% were like, well, everything's kind of been resolved. What's gonna happen to keep the next 50% interesting? And then the last 30% I was like, it's all kind of been resolved. What do we have the next like 100 pages for? So I was just a little bit bored, but since the first half was like so good and it had a lot of potential, I still rated it a 3-star. However, I don't think that I will be continuing this series because I just wasn't invested enough and I didn't get hooked. Like the very last page of this book was like a little hint of like what's gonna happen in the next book to like keep you intrigued and want to pick up the next book, and it just fell flat for me. I wasn't intrigued. I didn't feel like I want to read the next book. After reading Elsie Silver and Lila Sage's cowboy romances, I just feel like the bar's pretty high and this just didn't meet that. I have a witchy romance set in our world, and this was so much fun. I loved about 70% of this. I was so invested and so intrigued, and I plowed through this. It's fast-paced, easy to consume. The magic system is really interesting. The main character is really interesting. It's about this girl who tries to join a coven. She really wants to join a coven at this like kind of academy, university, play school to study magic, but every time that she uses magic, the price that she pays for it is that it eats away at her memories. So the coven says that no, we don't want to take you in here, your magic is too like unpredictable because your mind is fraying away and it's not gonna end up good. And she protests, and they're like, okay fine, if you find firstly your familiar, which is not an easy feat to do, and if you go on like this magical adventure and write an essay about it that we find intriguing enough, I suppose, we're gonna let you in. So she's like, all right, I'm gonna do that. So she drunkenly books a magical adventure, which is like normal plane because it's set in a normal world, so it's only a magical adventure for her. But when she's on the flight, some someone's magic is trying to pull them down, and she hears this voice in her head that says like, come to me, my duchess, or something like that, and it's like really masculine and kind of sexy, and she's like, what the hell is going on? So she saves the plane. They still have to land because they can't stay in the air, but she saves the plane from crashing completely, and then she ends up in this place where they are stranded, and she kind of wanders off, and things happen from that. The only reason why it was a 4-star and not a 5-star is because I wanted her to end up with someone that she didn't end up with. The love interest I had massive issues with, because he was just an asshole, and he went from being understandably like an asshole because there were like things that were happening that I understand his reaction, and then he was just kind of a dick, and he didn't redeem himself, and he just got worse and worse. And I understand that he probably might have an arc in the second book, and I do want to pick the second book up, but I fell for the werewolf. I wanted the witch and the werewolf to end up together, but I do want to pick up the second book. So it's a solid 4-star read and a solid witchy romance. Up we have Loving Romeo, which is another solid 3-star romance read. This is about a boxer and a rich girl who has opened a coffee shop in their small town, and he's like from the wrong side of the track. She's the rich girl. It's a bit of a forbidden romance. It was also promoted to me as like an enemies to lovers, that he like hates to love her, but he hated her for the first like 2 chapters, and then they overcame their differences relatively fast, and that's when I just felt like everything about the romance was solved like 50% through. 50% through, they were together and they were happy, and then there was another side plot that like went on for the last 50%. So I just felt like it didn't keep me intrigued for as long as I would have wanted it to. I have the next books as audiobooks, so I might listen to the next books, because sometimes the books do get better in the series, and I do still feel like we got enough of the characters around them and their like dynamic that I feel like I was intrigued enough to want to possibly pick up the next book, which unlike with Cash, I didn't like fall in love with the side characters and their dynamics to want to read about them and their own books. Then we have Enchantra, and this was probably my favorite fantasy read this month. Actually, wait, you know what? This was definitely my favorite fantasy read this month. I just had to check because I have the memory of a goldfish. This was a 4.5 star. I love this. I love this so much more than Phantasma. I gave Phantasma 4 stars. I really had a good time with Phantasma. I did feel like the ending of Phantasma was a bit like predictable and a bit rushed, and that was like a little the same issue that I had with this one, except that this one was so good 95% of the book. Like, I was hooked. You could not have pulled this book from my arms. I love the main character, I love the main love interest, I love the idea of the house and the game and the, you know, the not found family, because they are actually family, but like the family dynamics. And I do really wish that we get more books. I have no idea, I haven't checked. If anyone knows, please tell me, because I do want to have like a book for each of these brothers. I would kill to get a book for each of these brothers. Like, please give us a book for each of the brothers, because I was so hooked on every single character in this. Like, I was obsessed. Or I am obsessed still. Like, I still think about this book. The only thing was that I felt like if there had been a perspective shift once in the like last 5%, it would have been less confusing and more heart-shattering. Like, that would have hit harder, and that's the only reason it's not a 5-star. I highly recommend both Phantasma and this, but for this to be as good as it was, you like need to have read Phantasma. The slightly disappointed hyped book talk book, which is Fight. And the thing is, again, this started out really good, and then it was like their emotion shifted. Like, first time the emotion shifted like this, I was like, okay, we're going somewhere. We're leading towards this like big love confession where it's like they're angry at each other, they've misunderstood each other legitimately, like understandably they've misunderstood each other because of their own like past histories and scars, and they each had like depth to them that was like outside of them as a pair, and then they came together in that. But the thing is that like when they found out why they had misunderstood each other, they were both just like, oh, okay, well, let's fuck. And I was like, well, so again, like the last 50% were like, really? It was a solid 3-star, and it was a 3-star because it had me so hooked in the beginning that even when it kind of went a bit downhill personally for me, I was still like, can we redeem it? Can we bring it back? But I would give 3 stars just for that ambulance scene. Did a reread of the first 3 books in the Madison Kate series. I am currently rereading the 4th, but it's May, so like it doesn't count. I gave the first one a 5-star. Again, the second and third are both 4.5 stars. I think it was the same as the first time I read them. I think I rated them exactly the same, so like they still hold the standard, but the reason why the second and third are like 5 stars is because at times it's a little bit repetitive, because there's a bit of a like back and forth with like, do I trust them, do I like them, no, yes, no, like a little bit too much of that. At first it's like very valid, and then it happens a little bit too much. Still a really good series. Like if you like dark romance and reverse RMs, and like there's a plot outside of the romance where she's literally being stalked, like her mother was stalked and her mother was then murdered by that stalker, and now the same thing is happening to the daughter. So there's like a plot outside of the romance. The romance is really good, and I do really like the main 3 love interests because there are 3 guys and her, which is what makes it a reverse RM. And I do like the dynamics between all of them and all of that, so it's a solid reverse RM series. Super good. Another Kindle read, again by one of my Insta-buy authors, which is Luna and the Lie. I'm slowly but surely making my way through Mariana Zapata's currently released books, and I did have a good time with this. There's a reading vlog for this one. A couple of these books I read during my hunt for a 5-star read. So if you want more thoughts and feelings and like to see me as I'm reading them, go check that video out. But Luna and the Lie ended up being another 4.5 read. And it was so good for most of the book. And I know that I've said this a lot of the times now, but like it was looking to be a 5-star read. And then we had this like thing towards the end where the main character was just so stubborn and so stuck in her own head that she wouldn't like just get it through her thick skull. And I feel like if the love interest had handled that in a different way and we'd gotten this like emotionally charged scene where he's like, when are you gonna get it through your thick head, I'm in love with you, that's why I'm doing all these things for you, that would have been so much better than what actually happened, which is that they had the same three conversations, like the same conversation like 3 times. Solid 4.5 star. It was really good. Like all of Mariana Zapata's books, it was fast-paced, it was intriguing, it had, you know, depth to the character just outside of her and her love interest. It was the slowest of slow burns. Like Mariana Zapata is the queen of a slow burn. I don't think the characters kissed until like 90% into the book. Like we had to wait. So every little like look and touch and everything up until that moment was so good. Like the tension was so good, and that is why I felt like we were building towards this, and then it kind of just like petered out because they had those conversations so many times. It would have been fine if she like misunderstood him the first time or he wasn't clear enough, and then they had that big confession where he just gets like frustrated with her being so stubborn, not seeing it and not realizing that anyone could love her for reasons, because there are reasons why she is that way that are very valid. But I just felt like I wanted a bit more from that moment, which is why it is a solid 4.5. Next we have another book that my dad sent to me surprisingly, which is The Stars Are Dying. And again, let's take a moment. I had a fun time with this. We always love trials. I'm a sucker for trials. This was a solid 3-star. I don't really have the words to describe this. It was an interesting world. It was an interesting like magic system, and it did keep me on my toes. I just felt like it was a bit slow at times and a little bit like repetitive again with the like conversations between the main character and one of the male characters. So yeah, that's why it was a 3-star. Then we have 2 Kindle reads that I read back to back that are not related to each other. And the first one is a hockey romance, an hockey romance, which is iced out. And I had a fun time with this. This was spicy. Let me tell you that. This is 2 hockey players who have been rivals and like hated each other growing up, playing on different teams, and now they're in college and they're playing on the same team, and they have to like overcome their differences. And in the way that they do that is that they start hooking up, and when they start hooking up they start winning the hockey games. And so they make a deal that like we keep hooking up every evening before we play a game, because they are a superstitious bunch, because they're hockey players and they're really superstitious, and if we do that we're gonna keep winning. And they do, and then things happen from there. It was fun, fast-paced, spicy. Again, it just kind of petered out. Like it didn't really keep my interest throughout like all of the book. It actually was a 3.5 star. Like it wasn't like with the same with like Fights and Cash where I actually considered DNFing them. And again, it also like kept me interested in the characters around them, that I am interested in wanting to read more of this author. Like I liked her writing style, I vibed with her kind of writing, I liked the like characters around them that we got glimpses of, and I do want to read more from this author, which is also like why it elevates to a 3.5 star when it's like I want to read more of this author. I have the like complete opposite kind of book, which is A Stark View, which is a dystopian novel, and this did give like a little bit of like 2010s dystopian era vibes. I was really interested in the world building and the like characters. Most of it plays out in a prison, so it was slow at times, and it was also a bit like there is a forbidden romance, but it was a bit too much of like you've interacted a few times and yet you're still like, I don't know, it just, the romance fell a little bit flat for me. It didn't have that tension and have me hooked the way I want to with the romance, especially when the stakes are so high in a dystopian world where you could very well be killed at like any second. The plot twist at the end though was very good. I did not see that coming, and I do really want to read the next book because I feel like we were building towards something that is gonna be, you know, unraveling in the next book, and I am very intrigued by that. So that is why A Stark View is a 4-star. And then last but most definitely not least, Emily Henry's new release, Great Big Beautiful Life. I've seen a lot of people be like, I was disappointed in this, I was bored with this. What do you mean you were disappointed with this? What do you mean? Like, no, I don't get it, I don't get it. I love this. This gave the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo vibes. This gave a little bit the same vibes as like, I don't know where I was going with that one, because actually that's not true. I'm making things up in my head. But Emily Henry is a storytelling queen. Like, she is so amazing at like just the art of storytelling, and this is a book about like choices and people and consequences of your choices and how you handle situations and your own scars. This is a story about people, and it's so good. I know that says nothing, but that like so often books are not about the actual people but just like these tropes strewn together. And I just feel like I loved the dynamic between the main character and her writing rival that she's competing for this job with. I'm a sucker for Emily Henry men. Like, Hayden, marry me. Like, again, like, it was the same, like, I fell in love with the love interest in this as much as I did with like Book Lovers and Beach Reads and Happy Place, and it's just, it hits again. She just does it again and again and again, and it's so good. And just the last line of this book. I have no words. There are no words in my head to describe how good I thought this was. I loved it. Can you tell that it's a 5-star? Could you guess that it was going to be a 5-star? This was easy 5-star read, like one of the easiest 5 stars I've ever given. That concludes the book that we read in April. We read 18 books in total, and we had a good night. Let's jump into our hopefuls for May. I have 6 hopefuls. I always place 6 ones on my hopefuls. I do have some of them physically. I'm just gonna go through them and let them pop up here. First of all, we have a book that I've had on my shelves for a really long time that I feel like it's about damn time that I get to. It's an author that has been a little bit hit or miss. Some of her books I have loved, some of her books that I've liked but I haven't been obsessed, and that is Chase Me by Tessa Bailey. I don't really have any like expectations for this. As I said, Tessa Bailey is a hit or miss, so this could swing either way. And next we have another book that has been on my bookshelf for like a year. It plays out in like the same world as A Darker Shade of Magic. I do believe that it's from the perspective of the same characters in the A Darker Shade of Magic books by V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab and her writings, but for some reason, partly because this book is quite thick and partly because it's been so long since I read A Darker Shade of Magic, that I just kind of put off going into this world again for some reason. But that is The Fragile Threads of Power. I am intrigued by this, but I don't know why I've been putting off jumping back into this world. For some reason I have, so I feel like it's time. It is a thick book though, so I'm a little bit daunted by it. Love me a thick one. And then we have a book that I got on my Kindle, and this is one of those books that was really hyped by some big booktokers, but I've also seen some smaller creators that I follow hype this and recommend this, and that kind of convinced me, and that is The Lies of Lena. I am a bit like hesitant. I just have a feeling that this might be a bit like meh. The smaller creators that I follow that recommended this convinced me, so I did place it on my TBR because I feel like I'm either gonna love this or I'm not gonna be convinced. And then we have a book that I've actually already finished because it is like the 5th of May when I filmed this, so I have already finished one of the books on my TBR. I'm not gonna give you any thoughts and opinions, but it is Unsteady, which is a hockey romance, and I ordered this because someone said that it was giving Johnny and Shannon from Binding 13, and I do agree to some length. It was giving a little bit Johnny and Shannon, not as much as that person maybe made it out to be according to me, but a little bit. And then the next one I am in the middle of, and it's another book that I saw a bunch of larger BookTok creators read and they were obsessed, and so I put it on my TBR. And I can admit that this got my hopes up that I was going to be wrong about The Lies of Lena, because I started this yesterday and I'm 95% in. I stayed up until 7 in the morning this morning, on this very day as I am filming this, to finish it, but then I just got so freaking tired and I was like, I'm not following the sentences anymore. The words are all blending together. I cannot read the last 5% like this. So I saved the last 5% for today. And last but not least, we have the last released book of Jessa Hastings that I have not yet read, and The Conditions of Will. After I read that one, I was just like, I need more Jessa Hastings. I desperately need to read more Jessa Hastings. I love her. And I was like, there's only one book that she has released that I have not read, and I have heard controversial. I have heard different opinions on it. Some people love it, some people don't, but that is never. I have loved everything that I have read of Jessa Hastings, and I read the blurb and that like pushed me to buying it. Like, it was that little push that I needed because it sounds absolutely amazing. So those are my hopefuls. Can't believe it already May. I'm also heading to Edinburgh this month, towards the end of this month. So I will be vlogging some of that. I am traveling with my fathers and I do want to be in the moment as much as possible as I can too. But I am bringing my camera. I am going to be vlogging. I am going to be photographing a bunch of things just because I want the memories and all of that. That is also why I'm not like buying a bunch of new physical books at this moment, because I do want to save up for that trip and I will probably be purchasing a book or two there. We have a lot of Goodreads coming up this month. We have already started off the month with Goodreads, and we have fun things to do. Do like and subscribe if you want to stick around and explore all of those things with me and see what happens. That was it for this video. I hope you have a nice day, a nice week, a nice month. Be kind to each other always, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.